Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of American Rust. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, let's start off with Billy's situation. Obviously, Billy immediately notices things are up, like the moment people are whispering about him. The moment a guy walks by, he's like, hey, it's you're the man. Like, good luck, champ, and stuff like that. And you can hear some of the whispers, like some of it's like indescribable, but some of it's like, oh, it seems like people are making bets, and you're like, Billy's slowly piecing it together. You're like, oh, they want him to fight somebody, and just they're like constantly getting it together. And so it's not until later on that his bunkmate is like, yo, hope you're ready. A lot of people are looking forward to this. And they're like, oh, you think your bunkmate's ready? I don't know, man. Yeah, I guess he is. So Billy does the smart thing. Yeah, I don't feel good. Go ahead and close the door. And he's like, if this door closes, he's going to stay closed all day. And he's like, I'm fine with that. And so he stays in there. His bunkmate comes back being like, people were looking for you, wondering where you were. He was like, yeah, I just wasn't feeling great. I was like, yeah, that's excuse super not going to work. I wasn't expecting them. I mean, some of the guards are probably getting some of the action off of this too. Either they're just corrupt pieces of shit that are like, no, we enjoy this. Or they're just getting a slice of the pie that like some money and stuff like that's going around. I mean, because, there's a whole exchange rate in prison. I mean, I'm not saying it's like, oh, for some like, oh, I know from personal experience, just you hear about stories about like, because at one point in time, like, I don't know if it's still the case, but I remember stories coming out, like news articles and stuff like that, coming up about like how like cigarettes for a long time were like the currency in prison, and then eventually it became like ramen noodles. It's weird, but that became like the new currency. So I don't know if that's still the case or not. But I remember that being a big thing a couple years ago, was like ramen noodles being the big currency. So who knows what they're passing back and forth. But they grabbed Billy and the other guy, because I guess it's like they pit the new people against each other. So I guess Billy and this other guy, they're kind of the fresh meat, and so they go toe to toe. Obviously Billy didn't initially want to fight the guy, didn't have much choice, because eventually it turned into self-defense, but even partway through the fight he stopped. But then like Billy, because Billy's got a bit of an animal inside of him, like once his temper runs, he kind of loses it, so he went hog wild on the dude, and even some of the people go, yeah, let's do it, kill him, and like Billy stomps partway through the fight, and the guard comes and everyone's like, good job, you did great, kid. Even later on, rolling a Coors Light underneath the door. So I don't know if that's supposed to just be his prize of like, yeah, good, like, yeah, this is your part of the payment, or is it just kind of like, recharge yourself, you did good, kid. He mainly uses it to like, probably swelling in his head right now. His head's probably pounding and stuff like that. So, he looks a mess, dude. His shirt is soaked in blood. Like, I mean, what do you expect? I mean, it's a knuckle brawl. Showtime wise, I mean, we didn't get to see it, so I was about to compare it to another thing. I won't spoil something I was about to say. It was something in a similar vein. You saw the aftermath, not the actual event of it. But other than that, like, I was about to say, like, how bloody and knuckly it got kind of reminds me, if I had to say anything, it would probably be Banshee, because that's the last show I watched, like, that had, like, a really in-depth, like, no, I'd probably say, like, had to be, like, Daredevil season 2 was probably the last time I saw, like, a prison bloody-ass fight, and that was, like, when Punisher, like, starts, like, and Frank Castle's, like kicking people's asses. That's probably the most recent, like, bloody ass, like, prison fight thing I've seen. Because the other one I was thinking of, it's like, you saw the aftermath of the fight, you didn't see the actual fight. But I would say, like, probably to that, probably like a lot along this lane of non-superhero stuff. Even though Punisher's grounded and Daredevil was grounded in that particular moment, prior to that would probably be Banshee. That's the one that I think of. But tangents and all that side, it's like, so I'm curious, is he going to have another fight? Like, are they going to, like, oh, because you're the new blood? Or did he kind of get his bones in this moment? So it's like, cool, they're not going to bother him about it later on. Who knows? Because he wanted to keep his head down, keep to himself. But it's like, yeah, every attempt to do that kind of blew up in his face in this moment. So we'll see if he has another day like this tomorrow. At the very least, it probably gains him a lot of respect around the prison. Probably those who bet against him, probably not too happy, but those who bet for him, probably super happy about him winning. Granted, they're probably like, he should have killed the bastard, but it's like, yeah, we won, so. And obviously the cops just like spray the shower down, like, yeah, it's nothing. Well, won't leave any trace evidence behind, so that's definitely going to be interesting. So, other elements to the episode. Let's talk about the Grace situation first and foremost. Obviously, she puts in a report with Steve about the car. Obviously, she puts the prosecutor. I love that it's like her saying, she said, Pam who Pam wasn't that's not Pete's wife, is it? Or is Pam like one of like Virgil's girlfriends or something? Like, I'm trying to remember who Pam would be, because she said like a name Pam, like, oh, she's like potentially one of the people that came after me. Not like she was someone specific. It was like she definitely threw her boss under the bus for like potentially torching her car. So she goes to work and she confronts Gelsey, and Gelsey's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Now, once again, he could just be full of shit, and he could be like really responsible, or it could just be like he legitimately had nothing to do with it. But the look on one of the people's, like one of her fellow coworkers, like faces made me think like when it was all said and done, because it's like she's getting chewed out because Gelsey's like, go sit down or you're going to lose your job. And her best friend is like telling her to calm down and just like, let's come sit down, because she needs this job, because if she doesn't have this, like she won't make any money. But the problem is like, you've got this lady coming here, like how much are you paying her to come here telling us not to unionize? You know, it's just like, for one, it's like, for like, and she talks about it, it's like, for her, it's like, I can't catch a damn break. If it's not the Billy situation and it's not my job situation, it's just everything. Because she even says that, like, the entire town has plenty of reason to hate me, not just because I'm unionizing, just because of the whole Billy thing, too. So it's just one thing after another. But I'm curious, like, but they're like, because some of the workers are like, whoa, like the way he's talking to her like that, like he don't have any right to kind of talk to her like that, because what she's trying to do is do what's best for everyone else. And I get like, oh, Gelsey's like a small business owner, but it's like, right, it's like, even like Grace was like, yeah, the amount of money he's paying you for for an hour of your time is the amount he pay us in a day, hell, maybe even a week. But, like, Grace had no choice but to back down. So it's just like, yeah, we all have to stand here and, like, listen to her tear down, like, this whole union thing. So he's kind of talking about, oh, you were late to work. It's like, yeah, she didn't actually have a car because her car was bombed. And, like, also, like, dude, it's just, the fact is, it's like, truth be told is, he's putting up a front because he can't just straight up fire her for no reason. He's just waiting for the opportunities. He wants her to push certain buttons so he can have an excuse just to fire, so it doesn't look, because if he just straight up fires her, it's going to look bad on him. It's like, oh, so here's a person trying to lead the, get your business unionized, and you fired her. Like, it's going to, the perception is not going to look favorable for him, so that's why he's just waiting for an opportunity. He doesn't, because he knows if he fires her, that's going to be too much of a issue in its own right. But I think just the way Gelsey was acting, some of that 51% probably backed down just because, like, the way he was talking to Grace like that. So probably made some other people back down. Maybe it's enough to make other people speak up. But I am wondering, like, either Gelsey gave the order or someone else, just because they're afraid of losing their own job, like, did it. Like, there was someone in the back that kind of looked a little skittish, that I was like, I don't know if you're potentially someone that was responsible for this, but, like, the moment, like, she saw the way, like, Grace was being talked to and being threatened like that, like, oh, sit down or or walk out the door and lose your job. So we'll have to wait and see where things kind of go on that front. But obviously Grace and Dale, because obviously Grace wants Dale to do more, which he's like, I'm doing everything I possibly can. He's been removed from the case, so there's not much he could legally do. So he does kind of go around those legal bounds, which we'll get to that later. But Grace is making this whole point of like, yeah, going forward, we're in this together. I've got your back as long as you've got mine, because he told her about everything that went down with Pittsburgh with Chuck, of like, I didn't do what he wanted to. He's like, I tried to do the right thing. I told him no, and he did this anyway. And it's like, I just want you to know that, you know, he's like, he tries his best to be a good cop, and it's like, the system, the way it's set up, even when it's like, because once again, it's also like, your intentions, they are coming from a good place of like, it's like, once again, it's still that thing of like, you're trying to do the right thing, sure, but like Steve kind of brings up later on, it's like, he's like, there can be two reasons why you're trying to do the right thing. He's like, yeah, but one has to be more important, and the more important one determines your main motive behind it. So, are you trying to do this because you are trying to take care of the whole drug situation that's going on here, or are you mainly trying to help out your girlfriend's son? And if you're trying to help out your girlfriend's son, it shows that your motives aren't, they're altruistic, but they're not as altruistic of like trying to take a bite out of crime type of situation. Like, you're not coming with the best of intentions with why you're doing this, so it can corrupt everything along the way, and maybe without even realizing it. Granted, those lines have kind of like, because I think for him, ever since everything went down in Pittsburgh, he's been trying to like even the scales back at least a little bit, trying to be a better person, a better cop, because of he let that slide, you know, and now it's like he's got this on his conscience too, because even if he didn't pull the trigger, he tried to say no, and because he said no, like not only did Chuck kill that dude, he killed himself, and it's like his child's gonna have to continue to grow up without a father, like, because I think his kid's like a teenager or maybe like college or something like that, but it's like, yeah, like his it's a whole shit show. So, but then we get that little like peculiar like thing with Grace where she was like, oh, you think the person who named Billy was a drug dealer? It's like, yeah. And it's like, you shouldn't be telling her this is pertinent information to the case, but it's the whole conversation of, oh, we got each other's back. I'm like, Grace is going to use this information to try and help Billy, but I think in the end she's going to straight up, I think she's going to fuck Dell over. I think he's going to get screwed somehow. I get the feeling like if she has, because it's interesting, because like Lee's in that position where she has to choose between her brother and helping Billy, which we'll get to that side of things later, but I wonder if Grace is going to be in that similar circumstance. Hey, here's Dell, the guy that you have feelings for, but Billy's your one and only son, and so you'll do anything for him, so you're probably going to go like, yeah, if you have to sacrifice Dell for Billy's sake, you will. So I could definitely see that arising later on. We'll see. I don't know whether it's Grace is going to be like, right, going to try and buy some drugs, so because that was something else that was crossing my mind, like maybe she'll buy some drugs so that she could give that to Dale so he could like work his way up the food chain or something like that. It just seems like Grace in that moment, like you saw something like spark across her head, like, yeah, like she's definitely going to try and be more active, like she's definitely going to take advantage of this situation, this knowledge, to like do whatever she can to help Billy. Now what that looks like, whether any of my guesses are right or whether I'm completely wrong, we'll have to wait and see where the next episode takes us with that. But circling back to the whole Dell situation, he tried talking to Lee because he tried to find out from Grace whether or not, because I love that he's like, oh, did Billy ever tell you what went out in the mill? And she's like, what makes you think he was there? He's like, I'm not saying Billy was there or he wasn't. I'm just asking. It was like, no, because you don't want to tell Grace, because you don't want to solidify the fact is Billy didn't do it. We, as the audience, know that. Billy knows that. Lee knows that. And Isaac knows that. But the thing is, Dale knows Billy was at the crime scene. He hasn't told Grace about all the covering up he's done for Billy, telling Billy to get rid of the shoes, get bigger shoes so that they don't realize, like, oh, so his shoes don't match, it's like, oh, the shoes at the scenes were 13, so it's like buy a 14, so people were like, oh, different shoe size. But also, we still have not circled back to that jacket. The jacket's got to be at the crime scene, and once again, like, that's going to come back, it has to, like, near the end of, like, that's definitely going to screw Dell over, but it's like, yeah, that jacket's still there. Not unless he has gotten it, we just haven't seen it in the episodes, like it's an in-between episode thing, but it's like, and his fingerprints are on it. Clear as day his fingerprints are on it, so all they have to do is run it and they'd find out it's Dell, so he can't feign ignorance on that front of like, well, he's feigning ignorance for Grace because he doesn't want her, because it's like knowing Billy's at the crime scene might make her feel like there's a little more edge to like, oh, he might be guilty then, but it's like she doesn't, like, her not knowing he was at the crime scene at all, like, at the very least leaves it a lot more open for her to believe that, no, there's no way my son did it. You don't want any doubt creeping into your heart at a moment like this, I think, so that's why Dell doesn't want to. It's like she's got enough to worry about with Billy. I don't want to add more fuel to the fire. But she tells it like, he's been hanging around Lee a lot, so if anyone knows anything, he knows. So Dell goes over and asks Lee, and Lee's like, no, because admitting anything that Billy said will only like indict Isaac. But I think that in itself, him coming over asking questions about Billy and everything, I think, plus her guilt of like, not guilt, but just knowledge of knowing like what really went down. I think that's what informs a lot of her decisions later on of wanting to help Billy, which we'll circle back to those soon enough. I thought it was interesting though, like, because Henry must know on some level, well, at the very least, he's like, I don't want you, like, because he's had an epiphany lately because, he's upset about like, right, Isaac, because he talked about him and Isaac and Lee's mom. Their relationship, their marriage wasn't always in a good place, even near the end. But they had their ups and downs, but they found a way to work out. He's like, so you and your husband Alejandro, you'll find a way to make it work. Question is, does she want to make it work? Is what that comes down to. But I think she'll still try to, while still helping Billy, but we'll see. But he also talks about, like, he realizes, like, you know, what he did when it came to Isaac. He was like, I didn't make it easier for him. And even Lee's like, yeah, this town doesn't do a good job of festering positivity towards those who are different. Like, it ends up festering a lot of negative stuff towards people who are different. And so now Henry, like, you know, because both Lee and Henry dream about him. And it's like, it's just like, you think he's okay? And Lee's like, I hope he is, which we know he's not in the best position, which we'll get to that in a second. But because essentially Billy turned, just kind of like connect a lot of these dots. I'm kind of keeping a little scattered and just kind of compiled them a little bit just to kind of run through the through lines. Billy rejected seeing his lawyer because Grace was blowing Rachel up like, yo, I need you to see my son so that I can see my son, put me on the visitors list. But he refused to see his lawyer because he doesn't want to, because as his lawyer, she'll try and convince him not to protect someone, which even his bunkmate is like, oh, you don't want to see your lawyer? You protecting someone? Like, it's super obvious because, like, why else would you not, like, why? Because even the cop being like, what? Are you a moron? Like, why would you not want to see your lawyer? Why you're not interested? It's like, yeah, his bunkmate gets like, oh yeah, you must be protecting someone. His lawyer, Rachel, was like, oh, you must be protecting someone. So, and she ends up going to talk to Grace, and it's like, she wants, like, Grace, the moment you get an opportunity tomorrow, the moment you see your son, I need you to convince him to take me on. It's like, right. And Grace appreciates because it's like, hey, you're here to help my son. Like, the fact that you even showed up here in person shows that you're a decent person. Like, yeah, she's got other clients, but the fact is she's still willing to go this far, especially because for a public defender, public defenders represent multiple people. Because at least I'm not saying a lot of lawyers don't have that, don't have multiple cases at once, but at the very least with a at least with a good lawyer, you're paying. I don't know if you pay for, like, the exclusivity. You probably have to pay a lot more for that. I don't know if that's even possible to pay for the exclusivity like that. But, at least, if you're paying them, they're definitely going to be, like, more likely to give it their all to a certain extent because it's like, yeah, like, they're being paid to do so. Any lawyer will do some, but it's like public defenders are run ragged because she was like, even she admitted, like, other than Billy, she has like 40 some other, like, clients she has to, like, check in and do stuff for. So, but later on, Lee is getting a job as a public defender because she actually wants to help Rachel. Because it's like, wait, why are you here? It's like, oh yeah, and it's like, you were at it's like, yeah, you inspired me and I want to help you. She's like, stay far away from me in my case. Because I guess from her perspective, it's like, because actually her helping with this case is a conflict of interest. And maybe that's kind of what she was hoping for, to help Billy out with his situation while also, like, ensuring things are okay for Isaac. Because it's like, she probably already has that other lawyer on the background to help Isaac, potentially. So she's helping Billy herself because that way it's like, the lawyer can help Isaac, I can help Billy, and that way all bases are covered. I don't know if that's her thought process. Maybe she didn't line that person up to help with the Isaac thing, especially considering Isaac's not here, which we'll see if that ends up continuing being a thing. But it's like, right, Billy's stonewalling you? Well, I'll be able to convince him to see you because he's in love with me. So, because Lee is the only one who would be able to convince him. His mom won't be able to, neither would Rachel, but Lee, as Isaac's brother, will be able to say, like, and especially because he does love you, he'd be more willing to listen to you above anyone else. So, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out with Billy. I'm assuming that's all going to go down next episode, but it's like, how that plays out, we'll have to see. Speaking of Isaac, obviously, like, I thought maybe, like, police or something would get involved. Whatever the situation was based on him and that guy getting attacked last episode, Isaac just walked away from it. So he goes into a supermarket and he steals a whole bunch of stuff. And because he was just like, I'm hungry, I'm tired, I'm beat up. And he ends up, he was, going to try and run away, but then, like, he got caught between the two cops. He's like, please don't hurt me, please don't hit me. And the cop was like, no, it's okay, it's fine. Plus, there's a whole bunch of witnesses around, so that the PR for that would be a nightmare. But I think it's just, like, Isaac went through PTSD just because of, like, that attack, being beat up and, that was a hate crime, So it didn't play out the way I thought it would, because I thought, like, oh, he'd end up in a hospital. Oh, closest contact is Lee. Well, now that he's at, potentially, I think you get a glimpse of it in the promo, but I think he's at the police station, and they probably, like, find out his information, even though he doesn't want it out there. I don't know. I don't know whether he willingly goes back home, because he knows he can't, because there's so much there. going on in Buell. I don't know, but he might not have a choice in the matter. It might be a thing of like they find out who he is and like a closest contact, not unless he ends up calling his dad or his sister and has one of them try and get him back home. I don't know. I thought that's what was going to potentially happen. Like he'd wake up in a hospital and that's all been like, that's the route we go down. But maybe the same thing could still potentially happen with him being at a police station. We'll have to wait and see. But a main chunk of this episode is your boy Dale. Now with all, well, he ends up visiting the mom and dad that overdosed at the baseball game. And obviously they haven't gotten their kids back, but Dale is pushing them for information. So he doesn't really know Bobby because it's like, Tom's like, he's not my BFF. So, but he does know Pete because he bought from Pete before. And then it turns out Pete is the one that was pushing the fentanyl. And I'm assuming because it is so addictive and it can kill you, but I think he was pushing for it because the more people get addicted, the more like he was hoping to get them more addicted so they're more likely to continue buying. I don't know whether I assume Jackson had nothing to do with that, or maybe that was all Pete's idea, or maybe it was, because I feel like Pete would have probably been like, that's not a smart idea to do, but it was originally Pete's thing, and then like Bobby just took over the operation now that Pete's gone, which we see that a dude went up to Bobby's place, bought off Bobby, gave to a guy. That guy went off and sold to Trent because Trent wanted to like party with his girlfriend. I thought that scene was going to go inverse of what it did. I thought what was going to happen is Trent's going to give it to his girlfriend. She's going to OD, and then he's going to be like, this is what happened. And then like Steve and Dale could like backtrack it to that guy who would backtrack it to the guy he got it from, and that guy would backtrack them to Bobby. I thought that's where that would go. It still can, but I thought Trent would be alive because he was the one that actually bought the drugs. And I thought that's where the through line was. But it's like, no, he immediately dies, overdoses from it, sadly. And Dale and Steve tried to save him, but there was no saving him. He had already stopped breathing by the time they got there. But there's layers to this. Like, if I'm not mistaken, Trent and his girlfriend, they're the people that were like running and stuff like that Billy talked to like a couple episodes back. You know, I think that was the same people. Like the moment Trent bought from drugs, I was like, and he was like, oh, this is for me and my girlfriend. I'm like, isn't that who that was? I think that might be the same people. I don't remember. It's kind of a shame, like such a young life. And that's what hits Dale so hard because it's like, damn, like another life taken. And especially so young. I even love that he went to the doctor and everything. And his doctor was like, oh, are you taking the medicine? He's like, yes, I'm taking my medicine. I just need something to sleep. I haven't slept for the past 60 hours. He's like, cool. Here's some antibiotics. It's like, what? I love that he literally says, literally everyone in this county is addicted to opioids, and you won't give me something to you won't give a cop something to help him fucking sleep? And it's like, nope. I was like, that's crazy, you know? But with the whole Jackson situation, Dale had gone in there earlier and saw like Jackson put in his password for the computer, but also saw that he had a gun. I was like, huh. Because when he was putting in the number, I was like, why is he paying attention to that? It ended up being useful. I was like, because I was like, oh, how are you going to guess the password? And it's like, oh, you already know it because you watched him put it in earlier in the day. It's like he knew exactly when to come in to make sure he could catch Jackson putting in the code. It's like, that's interesting. So he ends up breaking into Jackson's place and store and ends up seeing, like, for one, Pete Novak bought a shit ton of fentanyl over, like, it's like, you know, a monthly, like, supply, like, every, like, 30 days and stuff like that. And it's just like, it's not just Pete. Sees a long list of people with fentanyl, and it's like, oh, you lied to me. He brings it to Steve, which Steve is like, oh, how'd you get this? He's like, you don't want to know. And he's like, right. And then later on, they start tracking down all the names on the list. And it turns out at least a good chunk of those names on the list, I think if not all of them, the other list of names of people who have fentanyl are all dead people. So I'm assuming I was like, oh, I guess that's his way to cook the book, so it makes it look more legitimate, that it's not just, well, he doesn't have Pete coming in to buy it anymore, so he has to legitimize it by like, okay, I'm putting fentanyl out, but he's making it seem like people who have been dead for a while. Like he's using dead people to like buy the fentanyl. That's how like he's cooking the books to make it seem like that. But once again, we get back to that conversation of, well, let's go get rid of Jackson. But it's like, no, because if we do, Jackson's smart. He'll probably shut down the business now that a teenager's like die. But he wants Jackson to lead him to like the top person, and hoping this all leads back to Bobby. But obviously Steve brings it up again of like, right, we're just going to let Jackson continue doing what he's doing. We're going to let him go free. But it's like, right, Dell's like, I want everybody. And it's like, yeah, do you really just want everybody? Or is everyone else a icing on a cake because the main person you're going after is Bobby? But if you get everyone else in the process, that's fine. But your main goal is Bobby. You want to get Jackson and everyone so that he can turn on Bobby. And if like, yeah, Bobby gets convicted for all this stuff, he's no longer a credible witness, which kind of discounts everything he ever said against Billy. So see, it's kind of like, is that really your motive? So they do go checking on Jackson. It's like, oh yeah, heard about your break-in, yeah. Because if you notice, Dale also didn't take any gloves on, like when he broke into Jackson's place. Not less when he left, he wiped the whole place down. But I'm like, I feel like you should have worn gloves. But it's because you knew you'd be the ones investigating. I figured as much. I still thought you'd want to like have gloves and stuff like that. But I guess if you're the only ones investigating, like you don't have to worry about that stuff. But Jackson's like, yeah, so young. Oh, so sorry about that kid. And Dale's like, yeah, we'll tell his family that you're sending your condolences and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah. So whether Jackson's kind of being like, they broke into my place, but it's still anything. Kind of suspicious of it, and probably can tell a little bit like, things between me and Daryl. I don't know. Maybe why would he immediately jump to that? But maybe like the way Dale's been around him now, it might be a little different to the point that he starts picking up of like, there's something there. So we'll see. Because I thought hearing all this that. Especially when Jackson was like, I felt so bad for that kid. I'm surprised Dale didn't just say, fuck it, and just arrest him then and there. I was kind of hoping he would, because I feel like that is the right thing. But once again, he is still trying to do the right thing while also being loyal to Grace and actually helping her, because he's trying to help out a kid. But it's like, once again, you don't have the best of intentions because that kid's your girlfriend's kid. So once again, this show just has so many moving pieces, and everything's like directly connected, and then there's stuff that's indirectly connected. But it's just, everything keeps influencing itself over the course of this series. So I'm excited to see where everything takes us. Okay, so I quickly checked. It is only 2 episodes. Like I said, I thought it was 10. It's like, nope, it's an odd number like 9. And I always get thrown off when shows do like odd numbers like that. Whatever the case may be, only 2 episodes left in. So it's definitely going to be really interesting to see where the next episode takes us with all of that. I'm excited to see what happens. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.